Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions, friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, folks, I'm just going to say this right now. Did I, or did I not, exactly say that the Lions were going to have to do virtually exactly what they were going to have to do in order to win this game? Everybody thought I was kind of crazy in regards to what I said the offense was going to do in order to want to try and win this game. Now, I'm going to say this right now. The Lions absolutely played the game through the air. They made the majority of their offense through the air. But, as we also know, the Lions got a lot of help on the ground. I mean, let's just be fair and call it for what it is. The Lions got 4 touchdowns on the ground. And I started thinking to myself, I was like, you know what? Not only was it the fact that the Lions did something that, I don't think a lot of people were thinking they were going to do in that regard, which is, hey, you know what? We're not going to score the majority of our points through the air. We're going to score the majority of our points through the ground, even though the air is where we're going to make the majority of our production. But you also have to think about it from the perspective of how the Lions actually played throughout the entirety of the game from all 3 phases of the game. Let's just call it for what it is. The Lions literally played a football game last night against the Cowboys that is exactly their style of freaking football. And that's been the one thing I've always been able to have a conversation about because nobody really understands what this means. Everybody knows the Lions are a gritty team, that they pretty much own a monopoly on the grit word, if you will. But that word grit in regards to the Lions has always been talked about as a hard-nosed kind of running football team, a kind of power football team, and that's kind of what our grit kind of resembles for a lot of people. Last night showed that's not the case. Last night showed that the Lions' grit factor, it literally is like water in one sense. It has the ability to take whatever form is necessary to win. And I know some people are going to be like, well, David, water's not very gritty. Okay, maybe in that sense it's not, but I do know this. You put water on under immense pressure, it can just about cut damn near anything. So that is a gritty factor, is that, hey, you know what? You put it under pressure, you put it under a impossible situation where everybody wants to say that, you know what? It can't do it because it's just water. It's nothing that's going to be super spectacular. It's not anything that's going to, be, worth writing home about. And then this Lions team shows up last night, and they absolutely do what they needed to do to win that game. Now, I'm going to say this. Like Dan Campbell said, it wasn't pretty throughout the entire course of the game. But that team played football the way it needed to play football. It was complementary in all 3 phases: offense, defense, and special teams. That's exactly what they did last night. The offense literally was out there and it was scoring points. And might I just add this? We did it without going for it on 4th down one damn time. Think about that. For the first time, and I can't even remember how long, the Lions did not have to go for it on 4th down one single time. They punted the ball, they kicked field goals, but they didn't go for it on 4th down. They said, hey, we're going to play smart here. Now, granted, I know this. When we were in fourth down situations, there wasn't really a fourth down situation that really was a good option for us to go for it. I think maybe only one time was that even the case, when I think it was like a 4th and 3. But most of the times, it was like, hey, you know what? It's 4th and 5 or longer. Let's just take the damn points, or let's play field position. Dan Campbell played smart, and you saw the result of that. Playing smart does not necessarily mean you lose your grit factor. You can still be a gritty team without losing your ability to play smart. And that's exactly what Dan Campbell did last night. Played smart, played gritty, and we got the W in very good fashion. But to me, last night, the Lions' win in terms of its grittiness factor, it came up in a number of ways in the fact that you have to think about it. Everybody at this point looked at the Lions as a team that, you know what, they're a one-trick pony now. If you just stop Gibbs, you can beat them. Because their defense isn't playing very well. They can't generate a pass rush. They can't generate sacks. They're not getting turnovers. If you get after Goff and you pressure him, he's not going to be able to play well. Blah, 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 blah. Like, everybody wanted to keep saying the same damn thing about the freaking Lions as if, hey, if you just check off these couple of check boxes, if you just do this, they'll fold up like, you know, a pair of laundry, and you know what? That's the end of it. The Lions heard that. I guarantee you they heard that. And they're like, oh, you think that's all you got to do to beat us? You think that we can't do certain things? And you want to know how I know they heard that? Take a look at what Dan Campbell's victory speech was in the freaking locker room at the end of the freaking game. He said, nobody tells us who we are. Nobody writes our story. That was a direct response to all the outside noise to what the Lions had been hearing all damn week. The Lions can't do this. The Lions can't do that. They're not the same team. They're not this. They're not that. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to say it for what they are. There are certain things that they are not this year. But quitters, they certainly as hell are not. They do not give up. They do not quit. They refuse to fade away. Because you have to think about it. The Lions, quite literally last night, they played their style of football when it would have been so much easier for them to just play whatever they had to do in order to win the game. But they stuck true to their guns. Sure, they mixed it up a little bit to be able to actually say, hey, you know what? We know what the opponent's weakness is, and we're going to absolutely attack it. Which I told you that's exactly what they were going to do. I literally said, I'm like, the Lions are going to want to throw the ball. They're going to want to throw it, and they're going to want to make that their main mode of attack against the freaking Cowboys. And also remember what I said. I said that's what they're going to primarily want to do. They're not going to want to abandon the run, but the run's not where they're going to make and break and do their mode of attack. That's not going to be what they want to do. They're going to want to throw it. That's exactly what they did. The only thing that didn't come out the way that it would have looked like on a normal kind of game in that regard is that Goff only had one passing touchdown. 4 of the touchdowns that the Lions scored were off of the freaking running game. But the majority of the night, it was Goff's show. It was just that the points were being scored primarily by Gibbs and by Monty. But again, it was a complete total effort. That is the complementary gritty style of offense and, football that the Lions play. Because you have to think about it, on special teams, I'm just going to say this right now. I am so glad that Tom Kennedy does not decide to go and play anywhere else. Because whenever that guy plays for us, whenever he, puts on the Honolulu blue and silver and he, suits up and he's in the game, he just makes a difference. He just makes plays for us. And it doesn't matter where the hell he's playing. It doesn't matter if he's a wide receiver on offense, he makes plays there. It doesn't matter if he's a punt returner or a kick returner. He makes plays there. That's what he does. The man just makes plays. And then, on offense, again, the Lions did exactly what they needed to do. They were smart, they were efficient, and they were explosive. Think about that. When is the last time we said all three of them damn things with the Lions? Smart, efficient, and explosive. Usually it's only two of those three. But last night it was all of those three. Like I said, Campbell was smart, didn't take risks, played the game the way it was supposed to play. Called it the way it was supposed to be called. And the Lions did exactly what they needed to do. I don't think for a lot of those freaking third down conversions, they had to worry about getting those conversions. They did exactly what they needed to do. They were very smart and efficient. But inside of that efficiency where, you know what, it was primarily, hey, you know what, we're going to just do these short intermediate routes, which are like maybe 5 to 10 yards, and we're just going to methodically move the ball. There were plenty of explosive plays in there as well. J-Mo had a few. Freaking Amon-Ra St. Brown had a few. Tesla had at least one. And I mean, you have to think about it. Tesla, I mean, dude, I'm going to just say this right now. Even though Tesla did not exactly have the breakout performance game that I was hoping for, which obviously with the fact of Amon-Ra St. Brown being one of the toughest individuals I've ever seen in my entire life, be able to work through an ankle sprain that took him out the previous week throughout, you know, the last 3 quarters of the game in essence, and comes back the very next week, almost posts 100 yards, you know, in terms of receiving. Also breaks the record for most receptions in the first, 5 years of his career. I mean, that right there makes the huge difference. But Tesla, he had something last night that also kind of showed up. He had his first games where he had a touchdown in one game and a touchdown the previous week. Think about that. The last 2 weeks, Tesla has had a receiving touchdown. Go back to what I just said, like literally a week or so ago when I was talking about this. I'm like, all that guy ever does is catches touchdowns and first downs. That's literally all he does. I mean, for a wide receiver, that's about as good as he gets. But again, it wasn't just Tesla. It wasn't just St. Brown. It wasn't just J-Mo. It was everybody getting in on the action. Gibbs was getting in on the action as a receiver, just like J-Mo was, just like St. Brown was, just like Tesla was. They all were doing it. But I'm going to tell you this right now. The one thing that I think a lot of Lions fans are really going to have to reevaluate themselves on is the whole, conversation in regards to pass rush, quarterback pressure, sacks, the whole 9 yards. I know for a fact that the freaking Cowboys didn't have their starting left tackle. But you have to honestly think about it. It wasn't like the freaking Lions were just constantly going to the right-hand side of the defense or the left-hand side of the offense, and that's where they were getting sacks. They were getting sacks on any way they could. They were getting it from the left, from the right, from the middle. They got it from their defensive linemen. They got it from their linebackers. They were bringing pressure, and they were getting home last night. I guarantee, like I said earlier in this episode, I guarantee you they heard all the nonsense about how, the Lions can't do this, they can't do that, they're just not a good team, blah, 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 blah. They heard it all. I guarantee you they heard it all. But the difference, as I've said before, is just because they hear it doesn't mean they listen to it. I can hear something and say, okay, that's an interesting thought. Let me show you how you're wrong. That's exactly what the Lions did last night. They heard exactly what everyone's been saying. All the new money fans that want to talk about the Lions and this negative mindset, that want to say the Lions can't win, they're done, they're finished, they're toast, they're cooked, whatever. They heard all that. They heard the local, media who said the Lions can't win. There's no way they're going to win against the freaking Cowboys. The Cowboys are too good right now. They've beaten the Chiefs in their last game. They beat the Eagles the game before that. They've beaten these really good teams. They're not going to win against them. The Cowboys are just too good. They heard all that. They heard the national media. And they said, okay, that's your opinion, but we know who we are. We're going to go out. We're going to play our game. And you have to think about it. In that game, the Lions had 5 sacks. They had 3 forced fumbles, of which they recovered 1. And they had 2 interceptions. If I recall correctly, the Lions have not done that. If I recall correctly, I was on Twitter when I saw this. I don't think they've done that since 2007, where they had a game where they had 5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 interceptions. I mean, you can say what you want about the fact that the Lions defense gave up 30 points, the fact that they gave up a boatload of yards freaking through the air, but it's like, listen, We knew that that's what kind of this offense for the Cowboys was going to do. It was going to put up a lot of yards. It was going to put up a lot of points. I literally said that. I was like, listen, the offense is going to have to keep scoring points, but so long as the defense just gets a couple of stops and they're able to find a way to get turnovers, we can win. I literally said that. And that's exactly what the Lions defense did. They went out and they got the stops that were necessary. They got turnovers, which was what was crucial to them winning. Because you have to think about it. It wasn't until the second half of the game that the Cowboys' quote-unquote offense kind of came back to life. Because think about it. For the first half of the entire game, all the Cowboys' offense could manage to do was score field goals. That's all they could. They had 3 field goals, which made it a 9-20 game going into the half. It wasn't until the second half of the game that their offense just all of a sudden came alive and they started scoring touchdowns. But by that point, the Lions' offense was doing exactly what it needed to do. Again, methodical, efficient, explosive, smart. That's why I'm saying the Lions' grittiness, it came back in a sense of we are not going to just play the style of football that we always play and what everybody thinks we are, that we're a one-trick pony and that we're just this cookie-cutter team that fits within this kind of, framework. We can be gritty in a number of different ways, and that's exactly what the Lions did. They were gritty by throwing the ball. They were gritty by running the ball. They were gritty on defense. They were gritty on special teams. You wouldn't think it was quote-unquote gritty because of the fact the Lions won 44-30. But you have to take a look at the entire picture in order to see that grit factor really show itself up. The defense absolutely did what it needed to do. Came up with stops, came up with turnovers, absolutely helped out the offense. The offense scored points in bushels. I mean, when you score 44 points, you're doing something right. And think about it. That's now the third time that the Lions offense has scored 40 points or more in this season. They scored 44 points against the Commanders under Dan Campbell. They scored 44 points last night under Dan Campbell against the Cowboys. They scored 52 points against the Bears under John Morton. So think about it. It doesn't matter who's the play caller at this point. It doesn't matter if it's Dan Campbell calling the plays. It doesn't matter if it was John Morton calling the plays. They are still able to go out there and put up an offensive explosion. What it needs and what it requires in order for them to do that is everybody doing their job. And it doesn't mean that everybody has to play perfectly. It doesn't mean that everybody has to absolutely be a superstar in order to do it. But so long as everybody's executing at a pretty high level, we can still do whatever it is we want to do. Because think about it. We were able to score 4 rushing touchdowns against a Dallas defensive line that freaking had Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark on it. I didn't see that coming as far as us scoring 4 rushing touchdowns. I thought we were probably going to have 3 or 4 passing touchdowns. But Goff still had over 300 passing yards, 111 passer rating, 70 completion percentage rate, and a passing touchdown. So the Lions literally said, hey, we don't have to be all one or the other. We can do what we need to do. We can play our brand of football and still make it work within this framework of grit. The defense, even though it gave up 30 points, to get the number of sacks, the pressure that it was able to get on Dak Prescott, the fact that, we got the turnovers that we did. Again, that speaks to this defense taking the challenge that, Kelvin Shepherd put on them, and they responded in spades. It's just that simple. Now, like Campbell said, was it perfect? No, it wasn't perfect. Obviously, there are things that they would still love to have cleaned up, that they would still love to make sure that, hey, you know what? We don't want to be missing these things. The penalties, I will say this, that was the one thing about that game last night that absolutely was not fun to watch, because how many false starts did we see? How many illegal formations did we see? I mean, it was just absolutely crazy how there were calls, and it's just like, dude, this is basic, rudimentary, fundamental, how you line up, how do you not do stupid stuff. But the thing is the Lions played through it. They found a way to get through it. And I'm going to just say this right now. I already know some people are going to say, oh, well, what about the refs and all this, that, and the other thing? Let's just call it for what it is, folks. Yeah, the refs made some really bad calls against the Lions last night. They also made some really good calls for the Lions last night. Because you know what? let's just call it for what it is. That should have been a safety, in my opinion. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, the ball was out. Dude, by any definition of a normal person, that's a safety. Freaking Dak Prescott was in the end zone. I don't give a damn if the ball was not fully in the freaking, end zone line or not. The point is, he was sacked in the damn end zone. That's a safety. Oh, but that's not, I don't care. Let's also talk about the fact that on the one time when the freaking Dallas Cowboys jumped offside, impeded themselves into the neutral zone, should have been a free play. That was not called. So yeah, I know Dallas Cowboys fans are going to say, "Oh well, you guys got everything that went your way. We got screwed. We got hosed." Don't forget the fact that the Lions got screwed over plenty times throughout the course of the game. The point of the matter is that yeah, the refs definitely made some really, really bad calls, no calls, whatever have you. I don't doubt that. I don't deny that a single second because they certainly did. But the one thing I can at least say is this: it wasn't all favored one way or the other. The Lions got some really bad calls. The Cowboys got some really bad calls. So yeah, the refs sucked, but at least they sucked equally for both teams. It was just like, hey, you know what? Nobody's getting a clear advantage here. Some people are going to say that that's bullcrap, but it's like, listen, we just got ours at the end of the game where it mattered a little bit more than at the beginning of the game. Point is that when you tally it all up, it was fair and equal in the sense that, hey, you know what? We got calls that went our way. We got calls that didn't go our way. Just like the Cowboys got calls that went their way and got calls that didn't go their way. The point is that when the calls didn't go our way, we didn't hang our head and not play our full hearts. Like a certain George Pickens at wide receiver who's been absolutely completely destroyed now in the freaking media by Richard Sherman and a lot of others for his lackadaisical and, just lazy effort. It's like, listen, your star receiver, CeeDee Lamb, he gets knocked out of the game with a concussion. You're the guy that everyone's going to look to make plays. But yet, a wide receiver that I had never heard of up until this point, freaking, what was his name? Fulneroy, whatever the Thunder it was, he was the guy that was making the majority of their plays. He was the guy that stepped in after Lamb left, not Pickens. But that's my whole point, is that the Lions, it didn't matter who they went with. It didn't matter if some unknown player came in and was the one that was doing it. The Stars did it too. Nobody expected Amon-Ra St. Brown was going to go out and have a near 100-yard performance against the Cowboys, especially after having a low ankle sprain pretty much literally less than a week prior to that. But that's exactly what he did. It doesn't matter. Everybody on our team does what they need to do. Everybody on our team plays with grit. Everybody on our team plays their ass off. Not just some of the time, not just when it feels convenient for them, not just when they're 100%. They do it all the time. And that's the difference between a team like the Cowboys, who, hey, you know what? They had won 3 of their last, however many games, and they were looking red hot. And yeah, they were absolutely red hot. They were white hot in the sense of, hey, you know what? We've beaten the Chiefs. We've beaten the Eagles. It looks like we're on our up and up right now. But then all of a sudden you come into Detroit, you play against a Lions team that they are made of something different, and it's like, listen, unless everybody's doing exactly what you need to do and they're playing on the same level that we're playing, it's not going to matter. That's what I'm going to say right now. And you know what? Some people are going to not agree with me on this and they're going to think I'm crazy. But the only time that we really lose games is when we beat ourselves. It's when we don't execute. It's when we make stupid penalties, costly mistakes. We are the best team in the NFL in beating ourselves. Now, sure, the refs do also love to do that as well. They love to beat us. But think about it. No team has officially just gone out there and handed us our ass. We get our own asses handed to ourselves by beating ourselves with stupid mistakes. But when we're playing at a really tip-top level, not perfect, but tip-top level, we can play against anybody. It's that simple. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be everybody a superstar. We just have to have everybody do their jobs, and when that happens, we can win. That's what that game last night against the Cowboys showed. It's like, listen, this is a team that everybody was in their corner thinking that they were going to win. Hell, even Cade Cunningham was in their corner. Freaking Detroit Pistons superstar, he's out there saying, oh yeah, I'm rooting for the Cowboys. They're going to go to the Super Bowl. And it's like, well, I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm pretty sure you're not going to get a lot of warm reception from Detroit fans, especially Lions fans, but you do you, buddy. But anyway, folks, I'm just very proud of the team. I'm very proud of the way they played. I'm very proud of their toughness. I'm very proud of their grittiness. And they've now earned an extended rest to now get ready for the Rams. Not this upcoming Sunday, obviously, but next Sunday. But yes, the Lions' grittiness factor, it stood tall. It did exactly what it needed to do. They played the game the way they needed to play, and they won a really great victory. Again, not perfect at all, but I don't care. And I guarantee you this, the Lions don't care. It doesn't need to be perfect. They just need to keep winning. And if they play their brand of football, it doesn't have to be perfect. If it is, they'll take that absolutely all damn day long. But it doesn't have to be perfect. They just need to keep playing the way they just played last night against the Cowboys. It's that simple. But anyway, folks, I've said my piece. I just wanted to talk about this. So having said that, I'm going to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these three things. Like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you enjoyed the content, I hope to gain your subscription if you had not yet done so already. Also, if you subscribed in the past and forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you not yet had a chance to do so, want to also say this, please make sure you hit that bell notification icon so you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Hope y'all are doing well. Hope y'all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.